Hello and welcome to a live stream Digital Lounge. Today we're diving into the world of higher education. UK universities are under real pressure at the moment. Tighter budgets, shifting student demand and rising expectations around digital and AI all add up to a big challenge. So the question isn't what new technology to add, it's how to make transformation actually work in practice. Following the recent UCISA leadership discussions, today we're focusing on what's genuinely working now, where universities are seeing value, and where they're focusing next. Joining me is Lee Rose from the University of Sussex, bringing the reality from inside a university from a CTO's perspective, and Nathan Smith from Crimson with a cross-sector view of what's working and what isn't. If you're watching live, you can put your questions to the panel and leave your comments as we go. I'm Mark Britton, and this is the Digital Lounge. And let me welcome Lee and Nathan to the stage. Welcome both. It's lovely to have you both here today. Thank you for joining us on the Digital Lounge.
Hi, Mark. Good to see you. Hi, Nathan.
Hi, Mark. Hi, Lee.
Yeah, nice to see you both. Okay, Lee, if I can turn to you first of all, if I may. As I've just sort of set out, universities are facing real pressure at the moment, real financial constraints, dare I say, recruitment volatility, growing expectations. Just from your perspective, what does that current operating environment actually feel like inside universities at the moment?
Well, it's a great question to start with, Mark. And I've worked in this sector for a long time, and I've experienced some really difficult scenarios which have impacted across those organisations. But this is as challenging as I've ever seen it, and it's tough. It's really tough right now. I think as you've alluded, we're dealing with so many things that are impacting us, the like of which we've never seen before, at least not all at the same time. Visa and immigration rules, living costs, debt fears, global competition, government stance and policy uncertainty, perception of degree value, and all of that, it's leading to reduced student numbers. And it's putting extreme financial pressure on many of our organisations. It's starting to stretch our teams across day-to-day operations and project technologies. And we're having to do more with less. But the expectation doesn't go away. It's still high, and the demand on digital tech, it just continues to increase, and whilst the capacity is shrinking. So it's a really tough and really challenging situation at the moment.
And Nathan, I mean, you're travelling the length and breadth of the country, speaking to universities all over the UK. It must be something that you're hearing a lot as well.
Yeah, it's quite common to speak to people like Lee in their role and listen to what's going on. Obviously, there's always a slight variant depending on the university you're speaking to, certain challenges that they've had. They might have more pressure under international recruitment quotas, trying to enter into new markets. There might be operational efficiencies they're trying to drive, other investments that have gone through. So there's always that slight variance on the lens. But I think the mood is everyone's kind of feeling the pressure. I think it's quite interesting, Mark, as you said, because we work across a number of different industries as well. Local authorities, a great example. We talked about this before. They are under extreme pressure, as we also know. That they don't have all the budgets and funds that they actually need. I think what we're finding as a common theme across the board, though, is that there are some really good people in those organisations at the moment that are under pressure, but they really do care and they want to make change impactful, not just for the benefit of colleagues and students, but also for themselves and for the organisation. And I think sometimes when you get that kind of boiling pot of environment where there's a lot of pressure and you've got to get things done, it does squeeze a little bit around actually. Before we might have tried to do 5, 6, 7 things, but now we've only got the focus and the time and the energy and the capacity to do 3. But that doesn't mean people aren't doing stuff. So wherever we're going, we're talking to organisations. Everybody, but whether they're being forced to look at what they do, maybe there's an element of we don't really have a choice anymore. We've got to go and do things. We can't take our time to think about things. We've got to try things because we're under pressure. It is definitely, you're seeing a lot of innovation and a lot of really good ideas going on in the industry. So it's actually, in one way, I know it's difficult. It's the same everywhere in the markets, right? It feels tough. It feels hard sometimes. There's a lot of pressure when you're speaking to people, but there's a lot of willingness to drive transformation and change, and a lot of really good ideas going on at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. And Jason has just added a question there, which I think we'll come back to a little bit later. I think some of the questions I've got today will probably touch on that, Jason. So I'll try and address that for you in a short while. I was going to come on to collaboration in universities. We're hearing more about collaboration between universities, whether that's shared services, sector networks, institutions learning from one another. Lee, in your view, how do you see universities collaborating more when I think historically it would be fair to say that they've maybe struggled with their own internal complexities, let alone extending that out to other universities? How do you see that working in practice?
I think in practice, if you take the recent UCISA Leadership Summit a couple of weeks ago, it was the highest attended event ever. And you know what I saw at that event, what I see at all of their events is it really is a community that's coming together to listen, to share, and support our sector. I think despite all of the pressures, there's still a strong sense of resilience and purpose. That's what I'm seeing. I think collaboration, it's shifted from optional to essential because those challenges are shared across the sector. Peers like UCISA and JISC, they help us move faster by learning from each other. I'm seeing people that are far more willing than ever to be open about what works, what doesn't, and why. It helps to bring clarity internally, seeing how others are solving or they've solved similar problems. I think it's really grounding and invaluable in that sense. But I think the real value, it starts to come from things like shared templates, shared thinking, shared guardrails. It's not always about shared technology or services, though that is part of the conversation. And I'm, you know, as I say, I've been in this sector a long time, but I'm not aware of any other sector that's as fortunate as we are to have such a collaborative approach, and with bodies like UCISA and JISC behind us, I think it makes us a really strong, you know, it puts a really strong emphasis on collaboration, and it's invaluable.
Thank you. And Nathan, I mean, I know that Crimson have been corporate members of UCISA for many years, and as you say, we work across a few other sectors as well. It's unusual to see the kind of collaboration in a sector when we compare it to others. Are you seeing maybe even more collaboration now? Do you see a change there?
Definitely. I mean, we entered the sector 8 years ago, Mark, as you know, and I think I've always used the story that when we first got through, you know, you see the higher education sector being very collaborative in areas such as research. But when we started to go into things like central operations, technology, etc., there always seemed to be a little bit of well, this is what we do and makes us unique and special. They've always had the forums, lead to your point, like UCISA, where, you know, like-minded individuals, peers have got together and networked and shared ideas. But I think what we've seen definitely over the last 18 months is a lot more coming together to actually work together in that space around operations and technology. And it could be as simple as, you know, Lee, as you said there, you know, we talked about this before, there's lots of possibilities, but sometimes the priorities will change depending on the organization that you actually work through. And it could be technology strategy, it could be organizational strategy, it could be current pressures, it could be money, right? Lots of different reasons. But ultimately, it doesn't mean that actually that all the things that you could do wouldn't be valuable. So as a great example, if you took something around, you know, learning and curriculum as an example, and saying that, you know, we want to, as a university, improve X, Y, and Z, it's a priority for us. Another one said, actually, well, you know, interview management as an example, or, you know, smoothlining, you know, improving conversion through student attraction and admissions is key for us over here. Both might be valued to both organisations. What we're seeing, as we said, we see this in local authority as well, Mark, is actually organisations coming together and going, do you know what, they're both really important to us. Why don't you run on that use case and we'll run on that use case and we'll share the learning? Back to your point, Lee, it's not always sharing the technology. It's going, right, so what do we overcome? What were the challenges? How can we learn from that? What templates do you have? What reference models? And I know people like JISC and UCISA have always kind of promoted that, but even at that level, I think, and Lee, after speaking to some of the guys at UCISA, even looking at some of the models they put out before around disc and UCISA, they were kind of well received, but not, I wouldn't say always that well adopted. Whereas now there is much tighter collaboration around, actually, do you know what, guys, come on, if we work together, maybe we can get that adoption, maybe we can get that acceleration and actually get the benefit from it as well. So yeah, it's very interesting, Mark, and I think it will actually evolve and improve probably over the next 18 months, 2 years.
Okay. I'm going to move on now, if that's okay, to AI. It's something that is just dominating conversations everywhere. Every time I go onto LinkedIn, it's just completely consumed by AI, and in fact, a lot of the content now is very AI driven as well. AI slop, we might say. So it's, and I know it's dominating conversations in higher education as well. But I think we all recognise that simply enabling AI tools isn't a strategy. So Lee, where do you see universities getting distracted by some of that hype at the moment, and where do you think they should be focusing?
So I think the distractions are born out of several areas. I think it's following trends rather than aligning to a purposeful, what's your direction of travel. Rushed adoption without foundation or strategy, based on pressure to do what someone else is doing and keeping up with that trend. There's probably a bit of choosing shiny tools because every vendor's doing AI and they all want you to use their service because it's the best. I think there's something about internal conflict slowing progress. So where some disciplines are embracing AI and others are resistant. So you have a lack of consistent approach. I think there's maybe a disproportionate focus on risks. So things like integrity, bias, privacy. And I think that's super important, but at a time it can distract from the true improvements that you can make. In terms of where we need to focus, I think it's about avoiding tool first thinking. Start with the pain points, not the technology. What's the problem we're trying to solve, rather than rushing in and solutionizing. I think we need to strengthen digital foundations and addressing elements such as technical debt, providing reliable infrastructure, clean data, and strong cybersecurity, building staff knowledge and understanding of ethical use of AI and helping them to use it responsibly. So things like AI policy frameworks, I think that's a key thing. And an AI focused on student benefit. So ensuring alignment and avoiding fragmented development across your organization, and things like curriculum and assessment review and redesign to prepare students for AI enhanced workplaces, because ultimately that's the way it's going to go.
And I think clearly there is a huge amount of investment, as we know, going into AI at the moment. Nathan, we see it a lot with Microsoft. They're always banging the drum around Copilot and all of the investment they're putting in there. But I think I'm going to just touch on Jason's question now, because there's got to be a tension between that velocity of change versus people's capacity to learn those skills. How do you see universities balancing that at the moment, and how do you see maybe Crimson helping with that a little bit?
Yeah, sorry, I saw Jason's question, and it was interesting. Obviously, as Lee was talking, some of the themes that are coming through, it is across the board. Am I seeing a university getting it 100% correct? No. And to be fair, Mark, even across the other sectors we work in, no. But are we seeing some early shoots of things working? Yes. And I think it goes back to what Lee was saying there. It's like everything, isn't it? You do want to make sure that strategically you're taking the time to understand where those bigger opportunities are. How does that line to really adding value back into the organisation, and what's really purposeful to yourselves as an organisation. The trouble is sometimes the business can't wait for that, right? Or students can't wait. And this goes back to what Jason was saying, all the tech's already out there and people have started to use it. And it doesn't help, does it, when the vendors are like, hey, look at this new feature, look at this new capability. And let's be honest, there's a lot of vendors out there, right, that are coming out. They could be point products that say, hey, if you just plug this in, it's going to help you with that point problem that you've got over there, which as we know, sometimes it's not actually solving the bigger issue. Back to Jason's point, and and Lee's point, it's actually just sort of putting something over a sticky plaster on something that's bleeding rather than looking at the root cause issue. And we know that if you go back historically around shadow IT, that's not always a great approach, because fundamentally you put it in now, but actually do you have to replace it further down the line? And it's tricky. I think it's where we're seeing some organisations taking a really kind of structured approach to this is they're kind of trying to do tactical and strategic in parallel. So they're going in and saying, look, we're getting a lot of demand and pressure to use tools such as, I'll use Copilot only because everyone knows we're a Microsoft partner, right? But there are other tools out there, I will state this. But how can we support and encourage the business trialing that and seeing where some of those opportunities are that might help with summarization of notes, some of those easy quick wins around productivity that actually aren't going to hopefully get us into some of those bigger conversations around information architecture and access and security, right? But actually do that in parallel. So we're going, look, we know, Lee, you said it earlier on, that's a big opportunity for us. If we start small and let the business go over there, whilst in the background, we start to map out the strategic opportunity in that and make sure that architecturally we know what we're doing, and we can look at the training, the adoption, the change aspects of that. So it's kind of trying to start in an agile way, Mark, but then also start to put that structure and governance around it. And the only way that I think you can really do that, it goes back to what Lee was saying, you do have to take the time to actually identify and prioritize where those opportunities actually sit that are high value and that they're going to be high impact. Yeah, and again, if you can find the ones that are very simple and easy to do, and then the complex ones you're actually looking at strategically, I think you just need to take the time to go and do that. So the universities and other organisations we're seeing doing quite well in that space are looking at their operations and their toolkit, and they're going, how do we do both? It's like the old bimodal IT model, isn't it? We recognise we kind of need to do both. And some things down here we're not going to get perfect, and it won't always be correct. But actually, because we're looking at the strategic way in which we need to do things, hopefully somewhere in the middle they'll come together.
Yeah. Just thinking about that sort of capacity for change with people, Lee. As we've already discussed, we're in difficult times. Financial pressure can understandably make people nervous about their own job security. How do you think leaders should approach AI adoption in a way that builds trust rather than fear, so that they are willing to embrace the change that we're all seeing at the moment?
I think big changes naturally make people nervous, whether it's AI or anything. If it presents as disruptive or different, it starts to cause a degree of nervousness. I think for me, what builds trust is being open from the start, explaining why the change is happening, how it helps deliver better, what it means for people's day-to-day work, what benefits it will start to bring. What I found works best in any transformation is involving staff early and students. When the change is something that staff and students can help change, confidence grows and the whole organisation starts to move forward together. I think we have to avoid scenarios where stakeholders feel as they're being, it's a favourite kind of phrase of mine, they're being done to rather than done with. Otherwise, there's no sense of collaboration or engagement, and where they've got the capacity to influence decisions and fully understand what's being done and why. So we need to be empathetic, non-dismissal about anyone's concerns, take the time to listen and recognise that everyone's got a point of view, particularly now around AI. There was a great quote which I'd love to share from the UCISA event a couple of weeks ago, where Professor Damien Page, who's the Vice Chancellor and CEO at Bucks New University, said he gave a good grounding principle, which was to use AI to automate the mundane, of course, let it do the boring work, the routine, by all means, let it augment creativity and enhance the social, but preserve the human at all costs. And I think that's the key. We've got to keep the human in the centre of all of this and make sure that we do preserve that aspect of introducing things like AI.
Yeah, very, very well put. So we've it's natural, isn't it, for us to be attracted to the new, the glitzy, and AI clearly is in that space at the moment. But many universities are already have powerful technology platforms, and they're probably not fully using them. Um, why, Lee, do you think that happens, and what's the opportunity if institutions focus on unlocking the value that they already have?
I think we've spent so many years, and I speak generally, not just from a Sussex perspective, but I think we spent so many years moving so fast, delivering multiple projects and services and systems, most of the time simultaneously or consecutively. It was interesting, Nathan, when you said, going from 7 or 8 big projects down to 3. I think I could quote 60 odd projects running simultaneously at times, and it just becomes a conveyor belt process. And I think, you see big systems get deployed at great cost, and in a lot of instances the full value of those services don't get recognized because you're already moving on to the next big thing. So what you end up with is a major service that you're only ever eking out perhaps 10, 15 or 20% of its full value, and its capability. So I think there's opportunity that's born out of challenge, and I think that's what we have to do now when we're rethinking different approaches. So it's about consolidating what we've got, focusing more time on drawing out the full potential of those services and systems that we've got, but really importantly, I think fixing long-standing technical debt, which I would argue that many of us sort of still retain and still affects what we can do moving forward. But within that, focus on things like partnerships, rationalization, standardization, clear processes, strong service ownership, better for configuration, and importantly, simplification.
Yeah. And Nathan, I mean, you must be seeing the same thing. And of course, we're working with a whole platform that's continually evolving. So there's that ongoing investment in the platform that clients already have.
Yeah, I think that there's a bit of a shift, isn't there? I think Lee, if you don't mind, I think there's if I talk about shifting from lots of programs, projects running that actually, we've completed, great, tick box, move on to the next one. There's a lot more focus around continuous improvement now, right? And going back to that, did we actually get what we wanted from a value element in what we were investing in? And go back to your point there, we've invested in a technology platform that might have delivered a specific use case within a project, but there could be an awful lot more. But we've moved on from the project, but we've never really kind of revisited and said, did that work? I think even literally, Mark, I mentioned this to you earlier, we were on site with another university yesterday talking about their enterprise CRM. Now, their enterprise CRM is a particular vendor capability. And when we were talking about some of the use cases around, look, we need to improve conversion, we want to try and actually look at how we improve retention. And you go through the use case back to, and at least this around the AI piece, what is it you're actually trying to do, business? How can we help? So technology, peers actually becoming more consultative again, rather than leading with the technology and saying, right, what is your problem? How can we help you? The reality is when you look at some of the use cases where people want to move forward or actually go again and go for that next piece on the back end of being confident they've done something well, actually, retention, if you look at some of the quick wins, could be done through data and analytics. Yeah, and even we said earlier on, AI doesn't have to do anything with the central enterprise CRM, right? There could be component parts in that. But if you go back 5 years, everybody thought, oh, CRM's the answer. I know if we go and get that, it's going to help us do X, Y, and Z. And it kind of links back to a little bit that, Jason alluded to. The technology is moving so fast now and so quickly that ultimately it's kind of, for me, it's taking us back a little bit, not necessarily to the technology platforms, but probably the way of working, where a lot of the business didn't fully understand IT or the capabilities in the 80s. So they were kind of coming in speaking to guys that might, the teams that might be going, look, you don't really know what we do, but we're here to help you. I think there is an element of that at the moment where, let the senior technologists actually engage with the organization. And let's remember, a lot of the technology leaders actually sit within the exec as well now. They hold leadership roles, right? Because technology is seen as such an enabler across the board. But don't turn around and say, hey, let's just look at AI. What can we do with AI? It's great that people are interested in that as an evolving capability, but the reality is you need to spin that back round, which is what Lee was saying. Going, I'll tell you what, look, we know about all these amazing capabilities, but what are your problems? What are your big challenges? And then let us work with you to see how we can use our capabilities to come and actually deliver the solutions that are going to have that high impact to you as well. Yeah. And then, of course, that will link back into everything Lee was saying, because you focus back around people, experiences, the organization, and then driving value. And then that will drive back further investment within the technology capabilities as well. That sounds very simple because you've got all the other stuff, haven't you? Like, change, application lifecycle management, platform, all the usual stuff that goes behind that. But I do think you can keep it very simple by focusing on the actual needs of the organization and the people that are in it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I think
the IT worry about the estates and the tools.
Yeah. And that brings us back to mindset, leadership, people. And I think one of the themes we often hear is that AI isn't magic. It's mindset, data, organizational capability matter far more. What are the mindset shifts, Lee, that you think universities need to make for transformation to actually stick?
So I think we have to remember our organisations, they're built on culture and history. So change is never simple. So we have to engage, listen, explain and educate. I think that's a key thing. Make small iterative changes. So create habits that ripple up and down through the organisation, build confidence, help pave the way for bigger things to come. To what Nathan was saying, I think we need to move from project thinking where, it's done on launch day to product and service thinking. So continuous improvement. Get our houses in order and lay the foundations, fix the tech debt, give credence to the importance of data, because our AI or your AI will only ever be as good as the data behind it. Do things properly and don't cut corners. AI done poorly will just amplify whatever foundation exists in whatever state it's in, including things like broken processes. So it will just end up leading to more issues. And then keep championing a human-centered approach. I mean, AI is about enhancing, not overshadowing what universities are all about, which at its core is its people and its experience.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're very close to the end now, so I'm going to close with one final question, if I may. As we've described today, it's a difficult time for many. So for universities watching this who may feel like they're in survival mode right now, what's one practical step that they might be able to take in the next 6 to 12 months to start building some real momentum?
One thing. Okay, so I think it's make sure your foundations are strong, which means the basic functions run reliably, improvements and innovation that follow, hopefully they can land faster, they cost less, and they build momentum, and it allows you to move from coping to progressing. But focus on your highest priorities. Where are you burning fires? If you're being asked to do more with less, not everything can be a priority. But above all else, remember your people and your teams.
And Nathan, I'm going to ask you the impossible question as well. What do you see as that kind of one practical step you feel universities could be taking to start building that momentum?
You are asking me a difficult question because for most people on this call, I've got a heavy background in sales, Mark, and we always have loads of things we want to say. I think that just sticking with the theme today, that there's lots of things that people can be doing, but I think if I was personally working in the sector right now myself, working at a university, collaboration, I think, go back to, it's been quite interesting. Lee, you just mentioned that UCISA was extremely well attended, right? Before, if I go back over the last 18 months, since the industry's really been under pressure, a lot of people we've been speaking to haven't been going to as many events because they've been working on the business, right? Or in and on, rather than actually getting the time to be able to go out. And I think you kind of highlighted it. There's so much learning that's going on at the moment because it's so fast paced. that I do think there's opportunity to collaborate, learn, share experiences, and therefore come back in and accelerate some of that stuff within your own environments. Even back to the stuff that Jason was kind of alluding to. You know, what are we seeing others doing? How are they learning from this? You guys share the same challenges, and we kind of touched on this before. I'd even think about outside of industry where you've got similar use cases as well, because you may find that another industry has already cracked something or is slightly more advanced than you are, and there's a lot of learning that you can take from that can accelerate that. And go back to what Lee was saying, it isn't always the tech. Yeah, one of the first things we get asked an awful lot, you know, if we've been successful with 2 or 3 organizations in a particular area and somebody's coming in going, actually, one of the first we get lessons learned. So what were the pitfalls? People want to know these things, right? Because ultimately they want to be successful. They want to get that value back from the investment and what they're trying to do, because they want to achieve the outcome. And I think, you know, if you go back to when it wasn't so bad, there was a lot of networking and a lot of, you know, more time to be able to go out and do that. So I think, yeah, go and find the right partners you can go and work with, whether they be industry partners, whether it be technology partners, whatever, and collaborate. Because I think at this moment, find the time for it, you'll get a lot of valuable knowledge and information that you can bring back into the organization and hopefully accelerate some of your ideas with confidence.
Yeah, thank you. Well, and I mean, we also run Art of the Possible workshops, and thinking again about that question we asked earlier around the platforms that universities already have. If you're using Microsoft technology, there are some workshops we can help institutions with getting more out of that, because you don't know what you don't know, I suppose, as well. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time today. Lee, thank you very much for joining us. It's always lovely to speak to somebody that's working within a university and getting that direct perspective, especially as you've just come straight back from the UCISA leadership conference. So it's lovely to see you. Thank you. Hopefully we can have you on the show again at another time. Thank you, Lee.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Lovely, thank you, and thanks once again, Nathan, for joining and sharing all your insight from
thank you
from the
for having me back, Mark.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Okay, thanks everybody. Well, that's it for today. Hopefully, there was some great insight for you there. I've just seen Jason's comments of great job. Thank you. I'm going to put that on the screen. Thank you. Thank you for listening and being involved today. We always love feedback. We want to do better. We want to bring some more guests onto the show to share their insight, to give you more value. So until the next time on the Digital Lounge, we'll see you again very soon, and have a great day. Thank you.